we got a guy who I just mentioned aggressive mindset, and this guy is looking to hurt somebody when he hits the hole, and that's Aubrey Miller, who came in first team all SWAC selection, 109 tackles, 11 and a half for loss, 6.5 sacks, was the guy in the middle of the Jackson State defense. Maliik, I'll start with you. What is it about Aubrey Miller that just made him such a perfect fit at that linebacker spot for Jackson State?
I think because he was the size and aggression last year. Keontae Hampton was very efficient, but he was a little bit of a smaller linebacker. Looking at Aubrey Miller, he can take on those blocks. He can shed those blocks, and he's improving, and he's harnessing that energy in the right way. Over the course of the year, I felt like he realized that, we do have one of the top defenses in the country, but I can't just go head first at everything. I got to understand my assignments and use his hands more. He got a lot better with his counters and being able to shut those blocks. I felt like through over the course of a year and since he's transferred. So I feel like that he's continuing to evolve as a player. There's a lot of angry players. I think there's a lot of guys that play angry, but they don't play controlled. I think that he's gotten under control. His range is what's going to stand out. And I think that it's going to be vital for them to continue to showcase his range. He's going to continue to grow, and he's going to have to continue to grow in coverage, dropping back and just really observing the field and taking good angles in pursuit when it comes to in passing plays. But I think that this is one of the most fiery players. He's a situation starter. When I think of angry, I think of like a Jannard Avery. I think of those guys, not necessarily a comp, but like that they just fire off the line of scrimmage. You know what I'm saying? The play is not over till the whistle blows. I mean, he's just everywhere. That's the type of player that I think about, like that one play that just it gets the defense off the field. They shut that drive down because of this guy. He's that guy. Like he's a situation starter. He gets it right. He comes in certain packages. He can do whatever. And he's efficient, like you said. He can rack the tackles up. He's definitely a guy. He's definitely a dude. Sure.
And G, looking at his game, what do you want to see from Miller to really establish himself as one of the top HBCU linebackers going into next year's NFL draft?
I mean, personally for me, I think the stats don't really help him in the pass coverage, realm, but I think he's a very serviceable pass coverage linebacker. I know at Jackson, they run a lot of man. They run man pretty much all the time, and that bodes well for him in coverage because listen, there's not too many conferences in the FCS, and you could attest to this, where you're gonna have these running backs are just so. It's a different. You have like Caleb Johnson from Mississippi Valley, who's more of like a thumping kind of back that has some speed, but then you got guys like Qualls at Alabama A&M, and then you got Wilkinson, who was his teammate, thank God. But you have all these different type of running backs that are just shifty. So if he can showcase that. At that size, I think what he's about maybe 6'1", 6'2", about 240. He looks huge to me.
Yeah, he's like 240, 250.
Yeah, he's a big guy. So I mean, he's able to move and like cover these different angle routes and these choice routes or option routes. People call it different. If he's able to cover that on top of we already know he's a headhunter. He can tackle. He's a tackling machine. I think he averaged about 10 a game, so that's pretty good. That's there. Sacks as well, so that means he's also good at blitzing. You it doesn't hurt to have a nice spy linebacker in the next level because we know a lot of these running quarterbacks now are very mobile. So I think he bodes well. I mean, I just think for him, the numbers. For people that love numbers that don't really dig into film like we do, they want to see some numbers. So yeah, it wouldn't hurt him to get a couple interceptions, But he's solid. He's not a liability in pass coverage. So. In my personal opinion, as long as you're not a liability in pass coverage and you are a short tackler, because even though you let him catch the ball, he doesn't let them get away from him very often. He's a pretty short tackler. I think he's fine. He's a guy. He has the build. He played on both levels. I mean, I know people made a big thing about him not going down the media day, but we all know who the heart and soul of that defense is. We all know. And I think he has Gaddy and he has Davis. And I know you're very high on Davis. And now they have a pretty. Their front seven is not going to be as. James Houston.
You can't it's impossible. You would have to have I don't even know a comparison to make. You would have to have a legendary season to top that.
Yeah. That was a really good front seven. Like I said, the Celebration Bowl. Listen, for those who know, you give Buddy Poe 3 weeks to prepare, things happen. That's how I call it. Yeah. But let's not diminish how dominant that front seven was, because we know the back end. Everybody loves the back end. I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about the back end before we leave.
Oh, yeah.
But that front seven is led by Aubrey Miller. So let's not forget that, okay? Don't let the flag media. He's the heart and soul. He's the guy, if I'm not mistaken, he was the one that had blood running down his face.
Yeah.
So that tells you what kind of guy you got. So Aubrey Miller, keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep doing what you're doing.
And I think this year could be a big year for him because in two different ways. Because one, I think they're going to be better at the defensive tackle spot than they are at the edge spot last year. Because I think when you get a year more for Devontae Davis to develop, Katron Evans gets a year. You bring in True Thompson from Florida State, and they landed some JUCO guys at the defensive tackle spot. All those guys are huge. I mean, they got some real size of defensive tackle. And as you know, as a D line guy, when you're a D tackle, let the guys behind you make the play, man your gap up. You know what to do. Funnel to your linebackers, and Aubrey Miller's the type of guy where if you funnel to him, force fumbles, big plays are bound to happen. And also, I think the coverage thing, he gets a lot of work this year because I think when you look at some of the matchups they have, Tennessee State's going to throw to Devon Starling. And he's great in the open field. Mm-hmm. He's a guy who can get out there. And if Aubrey Miller has that matchup, that's a great test to see how he works. Hugh Jackson's offense. You don't think Maurice Washington is going to get some targets in that offense? You got him week 3. You got Gary Quarles late in the season. They're going to give him, I think Gary Quarles is going to be a much bigger part of the offense than people think, especially after Akil Glass's departure. And then even when you play Alcorn, Nico Duffy is no scrub. Like let's be completely honest here. The guy can play, and then whatever matchup you get in the MEAC, in my opinion, is probably Central.
JJ Davis.
Yeah, you got
Collier, you know?
Exactly. I mean, and then the kid at South Carolina State was an all-conference player this preseason. You have a lot of good running backs in the MEAC. So I think what bodes well for him is the schedule lines up perfectly for him to say, this is my flaw, and here's all this great film against all conference running backs where I can hold my own. And so I think that's really what helps out Aubrey Miller this year, on top of having every single D lineman on that defensive tackle spot. It's like 315. And they're going to be problems to move in the SWAC. But